Every NFL offseason, you can expect conflicting fantasy football draft advice from various fantasy football personalities. The way you can tell the difference between a good fantasy football personality and a bad fantasy football personality is somebody who practices humility. So, if you find an analyst who does practice humility, these are the things you'll notice. They do have a firm stance on what they're talking about, but they are still able to factor several scenarios that go against their current stance because shit happens. Two, they also give respect to other potential outcomes just in case they may be wrong. Three, they back their takes with extensive research and information. There's nothing worse than a fantasy football analyst or so called fantasy football analyst who's out there just talking based off of his emotions and opinions and making personal attacks as opposed to backing their information. We have a saying here: an opinion's like an asshole. Everybody has one and they all stink. With that being said, as opposed to me taking a stance on all of these fads like zero RB, or you got to do the hero RB, or go elite quarterback, or single quarterback, or even bullies tight end stance, what I'd rather do is take a stance and advise you on how to adapt on the fly in order to maximize your roster construction. So the first steps are very simple. One, have an understanding of the current ADP in the format that you're drafting in. And two, if you don't have time to look up ADP to get your practice reps, invest in a draft guide or a tier list. Now, if you do have time to get your reps in, I highly recommend you sign up on Drafters Fantasy Sports using promo code Disco Drafts One. We'll match your initial deposit up to $100, dollar for dollar, 100% match. Here, first place wins $30,000 in a $3 buy-in tournament, and there's $200,000 in total prizes. That's called the $3 mini. There's also the Drafters 2 million, where it's a $20 buy-in. First place wins $300,000, and there's $2 million in total prizes. You're never going to get access to true ADP unless you compete in these real money best ball tournaments. It is available in Ontario. So once again, Disco Drafts One, use that promo code. It's really awesome. Three, okay, and here's what we're really going to pinpoint on. You have to understand the different methodologies in terms of roster construction and how to maximize the efficiency of your team. So now that we got the introduction out of the way, here's my advice. You got to allow the first 6 rounds to dictate how your roster construction is going to go by drafting best available and also considering potential lineup correlation and implications with each pick. So whether it be stacks, double stacks, bye weeks, let your first 6 rounds dictate what you're going to do. Okay. And here is the big piece of advice. When you let your first 6 rounds dictate what you're going to do, you should have an idea on what your overall roster construction should look like. So we took information from the top 3 roster construction builds on Drafters Fantasy in 2022, and we're going to break down what this necessarily means and how you can utilize it in your drafts moving forward. Because the most important thing is not hero RB, it's not zero RB, it's not elite QB. It's how do you adapt on the fly and make your roster construction efficient. When we're talking about efficiency, we're not necessarily talking about these are the players to pick or this is the strategy you want to start with. We're just talking about how to maximize your roster construction in order so you could be efficient and score higher and also know just how the rest of the draft should break down for you. Okay. So there's several ways we could go about this. I mean, one, which is really time consuming and I'm not going to do, is sit here and tell you, well, if you got Tyreek Hill as the 4th overall pick and you got Jalen Waddle in the 2nd round and you got, then you're going to need to get Tua Tagovailoa, we'd be here forever. I'm not going to do that to you. So I'm just going to tell you what the 3 most common roster construction types are and what kind of starts you're going to have in the first 6 rounds that would dictate which one you should go to. None of them are right. None of them are wrong. It's just how can we maximize the efficiency in terms of utilizing this kind of roster construction. You could use it here on Drafters. You can use it in Redraft. You can use it in Underdog. You can use it anywhere. Okay. So the first one is the prototypical in best ball format: 3 quarterbacks, 6 running backs, 8 wide receivers, 3 tight ends. So I could sit here and tell you, oh, this means that you went robust RB, or hero RB, 5 elite wide receivers, but I'm not going to do that. What this does mean in the way you should go about building this is it means that you, in the first 6 rounds, you did not invest in 2 of these positions. You didn't invest in a quarterback and you didn't invest in a tight end. So it just means that you're going to have to get 3 quarterbacks at some point in the rest of your draft because they're not going to score as much as, the top tier quarterbacks are. And the same thing for the tight end position. So it just means you're pushing that value later. You're getting a mix and match of running backs or wide receivers. I highly wouldn't recommend you go 6 wide receivers in your first 6 rounds, but do you, boo boo? This is completely up to you. This is just my advice. The next one, and this was used by 11 of the top 50 lineups in last year's Drafters 2 million tournament, is 2 quarterbacks, 6 running backs, 9 wide receivers, 3 tight ends. What this means is you got a mix and match of running backs and wide receivers potentially. And then you also invested at some point in an elite quarterback who's a top tier quarterback. So anywhere between Trevor Lawrence and up. Some people don't count Trevor Lawrence as an elite quarterback. I have different opinions, but that's neither here nor there. So yeah, you got an elite quarterback in there. You got a mixture of wide receivers and running backs. If you see that you started with an elite quarterback and a mixture of wide receivers and running backs and you didn't invest in the tight end position, just means that you need to once again invest in the tight end position a little bit later and have 3 tight ends in your build. Then there's also this final roster construction that you typically would see, which is 2 quarterbacks, 6 running backs, 10 wide receivers, 2 tight ends. What that means is in the first 6 rounds, you invested in a quarterback, an elite quarterback, and in the first 6 rounds, you've invested in an elite tight end. And there's a mix and match of wide receivers and running backs, or there's 0 running backs and you went 0 RB there. This is most commonly the roster construction that's found with 0 RB. So what that means is you get to wait until a far later round to invest in a quarterback as your backup. So somebody to fill in for your starter's bye week. So like Desmond Ridder or a Mac Jones are falling towards the last 2 rounds, Jimmy Garoppolo as well. And at the tight end position means you got somebody like a Travis Kelce or a Mark Andrews or Kyle Pitts or Dallas Goedert or Darren Waller. And in the later rounds, you get to just wait for like a Jelani Woods, who's falling in like 18th, 19th rounds in these drafters, $2 million and $3 mini tournaments. So yeah, this is not complicated information. This is just simply how can you maximize your efficiency, right? Based off of your start getting unique correlation and unique exposure to all other players that are out there, right? So whether you're in a redraft league, whether you're in a best ball tournament, this definitely doesn't apply to like the IDP Superflex people. So if you are that, I'm sorry you had to tune in the whole time. I hope you like my balding spot. Nevertheless, I appreciate you guys for tuning in. If you did like this kind of content and you want me to continue putting out this kind of content, please like the video. Every night, we also go live at 8 p.m. Eastern time. So tune in, subscribe to the channel, turn that bell notification on, and we'll see you guys next time. God bless. Peace.